Hey everyone, welcome to the Geyser Flow, Geyser podcast that's sort of shining a light on success stories in the Bitcoin space, where we look at projects that launch very ambitious ideas through the support of their communities and their audiences. So today with us, we have Aleks Svetski from Spirit of Satoshi. How's it going, Alex?
Mate, thanks for having me on, man. Appreciate you being patient with me and getting online and no camera and God knows what else is going to go wrong. I'm just waiting to be struck by some lightning. That's all.
Oh man, yeah. Well, hopefully the situation clears up where you are and allows us to get going on this online world we're living in today. So, all right. So, we want to talk about Spirit of Satoshi today. We're going to be looking at the amazing campaign that you launched on Geyser, almost breaking $40,000, 55 million Sats. So pretty amazing sort of track record campaign, but also looking kind of in depth at the project you actually built as well. So maybe for a quick intro, just give us a quick intro to yourself. I suppose most people will know about you, but tell us a bit about yourself and kind of what brought you to Spirit of Satoshi.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so I think most people probably know me more for the Bitcoin content I created over the years. So I think I don't know, written something like 2 million words through God knows how many essays for Bitcoin Magazine, for my private Medium and all this sort of stuff. But really, my background is more entrepreneurial. So I've always been building businesses. And before Bitcoin, I had built some software companies. I used to have some gyms. I was in hospitality for a while. So all sorts of crazy things, some successful, some not very successful, but that's the entrepreneurial journey is about, doing stuff. And sometimes it blows up in your face. Sometimes it doesn't. So that's my background, and my first Bitcoin business was the world's first Bitcoin DCA app, so Amber, out of Australia. And these days DCA is kind of the norm. So you have Relay obviously in Europe, you've got Strike and Swan in the US, River as well. So it's been something that's popped up everywhere. And I left that a couple years ago to go and do some writing. I published the Uncommunist Manifesto, and then recently, about a year and a bit ago, we started a little AI project, and I wanted to explore the design space between AI and Bitcoin. And what came of that was this project we're calling Spirit of Satoshi. So that's sort of how I got here, and we can talk a little bit about Spirit of Satoshi as we go.
Amazing. I still remember around a year ago we were planning another campaign of sorts. And then all of a sudden you mentioned, okay, we have to actually put this on pause because there's a much bigger project which has an enormous potential, and I'm gonna start a new business. You'll hear about it in a few weeks. And then I think a few months after, I think that's when like ChatGPT kind of blew up. I think it was a timing. I think that was a timing because I think that ChatGPT blew up like right around a year ago, maybe a little less than that. I remember in November 2023, it was still an early thing.
Yeah. So it blew up around I think about a year ago. So like January, February, it started to take off, and then like March, April, May, obviously everyone thought the world will never be the same again. And yeah, it was around that time. So it was, you and I were talking about Bushido of Bitcoin, and I had sort of finished up the first, maybe second draft at that stage. And yeah, we wanted to do that, but then yeah, like you said, this sort of came about, and I wanted to put everything on pause. And I mean, since then, obviously, as well, Bushido Bitcoin has come a long way. Like it's funny. It was almost done in, what was it, January of or February of 2023.
Yep.
And it's still almost done, and I'm on draft number 6. So that's been an evolving beast as well. But that is almost at completion now. I must say it's 100 times better than what it was last year. So I'm glad for the extra time.
Exciting. That's another cultural wave, you could say, since the whole culture around Japanese samurais and the shoguns and the history of Japanese and Western culture coming together is also quite topical, but also fascinating. And so yeah, really excited. Another trend you're riding there. but also an exciting one. So exciting
Yeah.
to learn more about that too. But so let's get into the details of like, what did you actually say? Okay, that's it. I have to do this. What in terms of Spirit of Satoshi? What was the sort of the key kind of like why?
Yeah, so it started off with I was, and I mean, I must say, like, I was saw the AI thing. I've been a writer for God knows how long, and initially I was like, "Holy crap!" We figured out language. We figured out how to automate language production, and I went down that rabbit hole because I was interested both in the capacity as a, I don't want to call myself really a technologist because I'm more I'm not a technologist like someone like Pablo, who's Mr. Noster at the moment, right? Like he's a technologist in the technology, whereas I'm more of a, you could say, a technologist in the
Humanity, maybe.
in the what, sorry?
In the humanity, as in
Probably like more like I can envision things like products sort of stuff. So like whenever I build business, I'm generally head of product basically. Simultaneously as CEO, I'm also head of product. So I don't know how to, write the code itself, but I know how to see something and then extrapolate how that might be used or implemented in the world, right? So anyway, I see this obviously AI stuff. It's all very interesting, and I'm like, okay, what can we do here? And my first idea actually had nothing to do with Bitcoin. It was more, can I take this language model stuff, do some fine tuning or something, and build some sort of characters that I can chat to, that possess knowledge or a model of the world that is important to me. And I was thinking of people like, hey, Jordan Peterson, or maybe we could bring back Marcus Aurelius or Steve Jobs or something like that. And that's where we went down that path initially. And we really quickly found that, okay, well, you actually can't do that. It is way more complicated. ChatGPT is got its own inherent biases. You can prompt your way into trying to get it to talk like those things, but it doesn't work very well. You can use embeddings. You can do all this sort of shit. But basically, it was just like subpar results. And one of the characters that we did was Satoshi. And I thought, maybe there's an idea here. And I still remember the night, like I was actually getting him, I went to get a massage, and I just like had this ideas just hit me. I was like, holy shit, actually, you know what these language models are? They are sophisticated search engines effectively. And what do we have by and large in the whole Bitcoin space? Well, we have a shitload of information, data, essays, books, writings, podcasts, everything. Like there's this richness of content that transcends any one person, right? Like there is a Bitcoin theme, and there is an essence and an energy to Bitcoin. So I was like, okay, maybe we can actually build, maybe there's enough data here and it's a large enough context to build an entire model around. So the idea was, can we basically build a public Bitcoin utility that is the storehouse of all of the knowledge in the Bitcoin space, and that represents the Bitcoiner model of the world? And that was the question and what we set out to do. And then obviously it's been a year roughly since then, or it's been about 9 months since we really made the decision on that, or maybe a little bit longer, actually, maybe 10 months. And things have evolved immensely since then. And we're about to release the latest model. So the guy's tidying it up now. It should go on Hugging Face either tomorrow or Monday. And yeah, we'll have the world's first, like it's actually, by the benchmarking we've done, it's the most based language model there is. And not only is it a Bitcoin model, but it's like, it tells you that there's only 2 genders, and things like that. So it's quite interesting. So that's sort of like the genesis story. I can talk about also, what we learned along the way, but that was what inspired it. I was like, can we take all of this Bitcoin information and embed it into one model that anyone anywhere can access and use? And could we potentially turn that into a public utility?
Fascinating. Public utility, meaning this is a Satoshi persona that you can speak to, that you can ask question to, learn from, I suppose, right?
Yeah, that, and obviously we're going to open source it so that anyone who wants to run it themselves, tune it further, do all that sort of stuff, it's theirs to use, right? So like,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and hopefully, if we find like a longer term sponsor for something like this, maybe we'll be able to, host it inevitably, so that way, it's always accessible, because running inference on these things is quite expensive, and we'll be able to do that for some time, but probably not forever, because we're not ChatGPT.
So what were some of the key challenges you encountered on the way? Curious to learn more about that. And
yeah, so man, there was so many. So early on, the first brain fart of an idea was, okay, let's go and take this and let's build a model from scratch. Instead of fine tuning, there's enough data in the Bitcoin space for us to build a model from scratch. What we realized very quickly was a couple things. There is always going to be more data out there than data that is useful for training a language model. That was problem number one, and problem number two was the expenses of training a model from scratch. And maybe I'll start with the training model from scratch expenses. So doing that requires not only that you develop a large enough data set, which a lot of the money in developing the data set is in curating and structuring it, which I'll explain in a second. But secondly is there is quite a lot of compute necessary for the pre-training phase of that, which ended up just being well beyond what we could afford. So we went with the alternative option is take existing fine-tuned models, take existing open source foundation models and do a series of fine tunes. And there's different levels of fine tune you can do. You can do like a really light, what's called the LoRa fine tune. So like, only tunes a couple percent of the parameters in total, but it gives you most of the result. You can do, heavy parameter fine tunes where you're, tuning more of the parameters, or you can do full parameter fine tunes. You can even do extended pre-training. So all of these just cost more and take more time and require a different set of data sets. But the big challenge, so we ended up doing all of those. Actually, we did LoRa's, we did multi-parameter fine tunes, we did full parameter fine tunes, and we even did some extra pre-training. So we spent like a lot of time and money on the training component. But where we spent a lot of the time was in curating and structuring the data set. Now, this is the part that really blows people's minds when they start to realize how much work actually goes into this. Is if you want to train a model on the Bitcoin standard, for example, you can't just take the Bitcoin standard and quote unquote feed it to the model. That doesn't work that way. What you have to do is you have to take, assuming you want the model to answer questions, right? What you need to do is you need to take the Bitcoin standard, you need to break it up into 1,000 paragraphs or whatever you got there, 1,200 paragraphs. You then need to convert every single paragraph into a question and answer example, right? So if it's like a paragraph on time preference, you need to convert it into what is time preference, and then the answer needs to be using that wording from the book and the tone and the style of Seyfettin's writing, etc., and answer that specific question. And it's the question and the answer example that you use in the training set. So imagine how hard that is for one book, let alone every book, every essay, every podcast, etc. It's fucking impossible, right? So we took an approach which blended some sort of programmatic methods where you use language models to do some part of that initially. You chunk up all the data, then you take the paragraphs, you feed it to a language model, you get it to interpret that into a question and answer. The problem then is, the language model that you use often dilutes the language or changes the language. So you kind of, you lose the essence of what Seyfettin was saying, right? So it's like, you then have to go through and make sure that you don't lose the essence. So that requires a whole bunch of like prompt engineering and fucking around where every book has a different prompt, every essay has a different prompt, all this sort of stuff. So like there was a lot of back-end work that went into that. And then the last mile is you need to get humans to review that to make sure that what you've output in this programmatic fashion does actually make sense. So you got to show these examples. And we built this whole tool where people, Bitcoiners in particular, they had to be screened in order to be led into the training cohort. And they would then be served a question and answer example. And they would either keep it or discard it, depending on the quality they thought, or they would edit it. And in return for assisting us in that capacity, they would get sats, and that's what we pay them out. So we built this whole pipeline of like really collecting, curating, and structuring a data set that is large enough to be meaningful for pre-training, full parameter fine-tune, et cetera, so that we could build a model. And that's where a lot of the time went, like, honestly. And what's funny is we ended up, like, to get this really good model that we had, like the model now that we're just about to release used probably 20 times less data than the first models we trained on, and it's about 100 times better. So it's not the quantum of the data, it's the quality of the data that really matters most. And the quality really requires a hell of a lot of time to develop. And this is why when you hear things like, oh, ChatGPT spent $1 billion building a model, well, 50% of that cost was just the data curation and collection. Honestly, like, it's, and that doesn't, like, most of the time that doesn't even involve machines. It's like really human stuff, that the better quality stuff comes from humans. So it's a really, it's a big mind fuck. And we just learned a lot that, most of, I could talk about like the art and science component, but like most of this stuff is really experimental. And we learned a lot of that along the way.
It begs the question, we don't really ever hear about the people that are training the AI models at OpenAI. I wonder what type of people are training, what kind of inputs they're being fed, and what type of biases also that may result in.
So, I mean, there is an answer to that. It's basically, OpenAI doesn't do it themselves. So they contract to companies like Super Annotate or Scale AI and all this sort of stuff. And these people, these companies basically have, call it bot farms made of humans who basically doing micro tasks and just essentially annotating data, answering questions, this and that. And, they have people segmented into different topics and expertises and all this sort of stuff. And, that's how they generate all of the base human generated data, which is still by far, it is still the most useful form of data to train foundation models on. And it's why the OpenAIs of the world and the Mistrals of the world and the Metas of the world are happy to spend extra. They'll spend millions with these guys when they know they have the models internally to create what's called synthetic data. But synthetic data is just not good enough. And that's what we found as well. So we ended up doing we did a lot of heavy lifting internally as well. Like, we produced question after question after question. We're just sitting there between us internally as a Bitcoin team, fucking answering questions like a bunch of weirdos. It was insane. But we created thousands and thousands and thousands of examples that were of high enough quality to do a proper fine tune with, and the results now are like pretty damn good, actually.
Oh man, really excited. So final kind of technical question on the AI. So when you're asking, answer me as if you are a lead marketer at a marketing agency, how would you go about doing this kind of marketing growth hack, right? So you're asking that question, and it's essentially taking the model of a true person, that a true marketer in some way, that in an AI form was answering a question from a marketing perspective. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Kind of. So I guess maybe to go back a little bit further is, what are these models? So I said earlier that they're a sophisticated search engine, right? So, or a conversational search engine, which is not entirely true, because a search engine is retrieving data online and it's giving it to you. Models not retrieving data from anywhere. What a model is a really complex probability engine, where what we discovered with the advent of language models and transformers, which is the underlying tech of these things, is that we learned how to codify language into numbers. And that codification is not just like structural, it's semantic. And what I mean by that is, traditionally, when you had when a computer saw two words like cat and hat, the similarity score between cat and hat was very high, because they both had three letters. They were almost spelt the same. There was one letter different. But semantically, a cat and a hat are two completely different things, right? They don't matter. In fact, cat and dog is semantically far more similar than cat and hat, even though cat and dog is very different spelling.
That's right.
What what was cracked, and this is the big breakthrough in the language model space, is that we developed, or whoever did all this sort of shit, Google people, etc., developed a way to vectorize words, sentences, letters, all this sort of stuff, in a way where the relationship between words was more semantically true than structurally true. And this was a massive breakthrough. So if you put in the vector for queen and the vector for woman is quite close, even though they're spelt completely differently, right? So like this whole vector space thing was the breakthrough. So now with that in mind, you've got these engines, these machines, which are these language models, and when you ask them questions, they can interpret through the law of large numbers the meaning to some degree, the semantic relevance of what you're asking, and produce something probabilistically accurate as a response in a way that's not too different from how autocomplete works that we've already been using, right? So these things are real sophisticated autocomplete. They can autocomplete sentences, paragraphs, pages of stuff. The longer the autocomplete lasts, obviously the less fidelity there is, but so long as it's it's trained well, all that sort of stuff, like it'll spit something out, and it's completely fucking made up. It's not retrieving it from anywhere. It's not a search engine result. It is made up, but the probability of it coming out accurate,
based on that semantic mapping.
Exactly. And that's the breakthrough. So when you start viewing it that way, you start to realize this is not really alive. It's not really, intelligent in the way that we understand it, but it is still fundamentally incredible. It's just not as magical as a lot of people think it to be.
Describe it. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think maybe just a final question on this tangent, which is super exciting. So, what are your thoughts on Elon Musk saying that in 2 to 5 years we'll have AGI?
Dog shit. I mean, I'm sorry. I love Musk. I think he's a legend. Despite all his Dogecoin stuff. In fact, I give him a complete pass for that, because he's such a like a bastion of he's like a bulwark to like the wokeness of the world. So I love him for that reason. But he's notoriously wrong about AI stuff, and he's notoriously excessively nerdy on that sort of thing. So I don't think we get AGI ever, actually, at least in the way people assume what AGI is. Like they think it's something conscious and sentient. I don't think that ever happens. And yeah, I don't think it's necessary to be concerned about.
Got it. All right, maybe we'll leave that for another time to go more in depth there. So let's so basically you mentioned all the question and answers you had to do, how a Spirit of Satoshi is powered by also and refined by real Bitcoiners that do tasks and get remunerated with sats. So is this where we enter the crowdfunding question as well?
Pretty much, yeah. So we wanted to take what we built and open source it and give it to the public. So we wanted to raise a little bit of money for that. We raised some from investors and stuff, but we wanted to top up a little because, we spent basically all our time and money, doing all the R&D necessary to get it there, right? So we said, okay, we want to continue doing this. We've made it this far. Let's get a little bit further. So we said, all right, let's do a crowdfund. Let's experiment with this. We found that there's people who have sats but not enough time, and then there's people who have time and knowledge but don't have sats, and we're like, let's use the crowdfunding mechanism to match that together. And then we thought of, okay, what can we give people more than just, hey, come support us and give some sats to people. It's like, okay, we thought, let's we built this whole massive database of questions and answers. We're like, why don't we take that and distill it into the top 21 questions and turn it into like a little book. So we did that. We called it the 21 questions book, which I think honestly is going to be, I don't want to brag, but I think it's going to be one of the best like beginner Bitcoin books on the planet. So we took Satoshi, the model, everything that we learned, we answered these 21 questions, and then we went out and got about 20 or something, different Bitcoin thinkers. So everyone from like Canute to Guy Swan to, you know, Brad Mills to Pablo Fernandez to, like, you know, all of the names that you'll recognize, right? Thomas Strolad, etc. And we got them to answer like between 2 to 5 questions from the 21 themselves. And we compiled all of it into this beautiful little book where you can open any page and you see the question, you can just see an answer from either Satoshi the AI or from one of these people. And you get like this beautiful flavor of different answers, because when someone first comes into Bitcoin, you know, what do they have? They have questions. And most of those questions revolve around like, well, what is Bitcoin? Why do I need it? Why is it different to Ethereum? You know, what is money? All this sort of stuff. So we distilled that into the, you know, what we felt like were the most common, pertinent, important, etc. in the beginning of your journey. And yeah, we put together that book and we thought, okay, well, let's make this one of the perks of the crowdfund. And then we thought, you know, maybe we should do like a, you know, a little trading card thing that we give away as well. And we caught up with Aladdin from Bitcoin Trading Cards, and we dug into that, and we came up with a really awesome plan to do a whole collaborative set, and some uncut sheets and some boxes and this and that. And the campaign kind of took on a life of its own. You know, what started off as like giving away some books and, you know, raising a little bit of open source money turned into something more significant. And here we are today. I think we're like 6th or 7th most successful campaign with you guys, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you look at all time, you guys are definitely up there. Yeah, I think we were at 7 before, and now we are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. Yeah, and not far from the 6th. But yeah, so obviously immensely successful, and the rewards were a key part of that. Maybe so basically, just to kind of sum it up, you're going to keep on refining, powering the AI model through a community of Bitcoiners that will keep refining the model. And so you're really a crowdfunding to keep powering into the future this spirit of Satoshi model, right? And you've now launched it. You've launched this idea out into the world in a community fashion, which makes so much sense. If it's going to be a community powered AI, then let it be community powered also in terms of funding, because I'm sure it's going to need a lot of that. And you use the 21 questions book and the rewards, which so I'd love to dig a little bit more into the books. Into the collectibles. So the collectibles with in partnership with BTC trading cards with Aladdin look absolutely stunning. So how did you guys come up with the idea? And can you kind of describe a little bit what? So you buy a card or you buy a pack? How does it work?
Yeah, so basically the first part was like creating a bunch of tiers that made sense. And, you know, I had a little bit of experience in that because Mark Moss and I did the Uncommunist Manifesto back in the day with Kickstarter. So, and I think that was before you guys had even launched, I believe. I think that was early 2022. So, you know, we had some success with that because we're like, okay, well, let's give people some perks that they would otherwise not get with the book. So kind of took a little bit of what we learned there. And, you know, even though we put that together with 21 Questions book, I was like, man, it needs some more strength. So that's where the idea was to do the collectibles. And, you know, initially it was just going to be for the top tier, we were just going to do a single Satoshi card, you know, one collectible card. And then for the next tier, it was going to be a 3 cards, one of Adam Back, one of Nick Szabo, one of Hal Finney. And then the 4th one was going to be like a set of remnant cards, etc. And then so we like counted up 35 cards in total. And then Aladdin kind of said, look, I think there's something more we can do here. We can actually do like a whole collaborative box set where, you know, on our side as Bitcoin Trading Cards, we can sell the box set and it's, you know, great for our business. And, you know, you've obviously got the best, you know, these awesome characters, you have this awesome design, AI design. We can do the first one where it's a blend of human designers and a bit of AI generated stuff. So, you know, it was like that all came together because Aladdin's a brilliant artist and like him and his team like do great stuff in the card capacity. But this was like the first AI kind of one. So it all sort of fit together. And yeah, we went with like doing a collaborative pack together. And then instead of just the single card, we went with different boxes and pack sets for each tier, along with these gorgeous one-of-a-kind posters for the different tiers. So like the main tier was like a one-of-one uncut sheet turned into a poster, which was basically the Satoshi card, but blown up poster size, printed on the same material with the holographic and everything that a trading card would be printed on. So there'll be only one of those in the entire world, and Brad Mills picked that up. And then the second tier was very similar to the first one, except it was there's 3 different cards available there. So there's 3, but they're all each one of one. So it's almost as special. And you got one of Nick Szabo, one of Hal Finney, and one of Adam Back. And Brady brought all 3 of those because Brad bought the one of one Satoshi, so it was like, okay, screw him. So I'm getting these. So he picked those up. Then the third tier was is the Remnant pack. So that was we designed a particular Remnant one. We had the 9 of 9 posters of the Remnant tier, and that came along with like a box, bunch of packs, etc. So that one also sold quite well. So that one, and all the Maximals. In fact, as you can see, I think all of those are sold out. So now the only thing that's remaining for people to buy and support is copies of the book. And right now we've got like different options there. People can buy like a 10-pack of the book, so that's nice and cheap. 5-pack. They can support by getting like a hardcover mixed with the Audible and the soft cover and all this sort of stuff. So like, this is probably the cheapest way to buy the book, because when it does go on Amazon, etc., it'll be a little bit more expensive. So if anyone's interested, like it's not a long book. It's probably going to be about 85 pages, maybe 100 pages. So it's actually maybe a little bit long, maybe 110 pages, but it's not too dissimilar from the Uncommunist Manifesto. So it's like it's very easy, simple read, like 12,000 words, and it's the perfect like orange pilling book. You want to get someone like intro to Bitcoin, like give them this, they open it, and like seriously, they'll open it, they'll be like, oh, okay, I thought of that question, like why is Bitcoin different to Ethereum? It's there, and boom, here's 5 different answers answered in a different way from different people that explains it. So it's one of those ones where you want to gift it basically. So and that basically wraps up like the tiers, and all of those tiers are nice and cheap, like $4, $11, $21, etc.
Super exciting, man. Yeah, super impressive how all the cards went. Very cool concept with the books, and even the books have sold a bit. So that's awesome. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
And also you can see like all the contributors. It's 300 individual contributions. A lot of these are not purchases; they're straight up donations, which is amazing to see that. So apart from the rewards, would love to know if there are additional kind of approaches that you used, tactics or strategies, whatever we want to call them, to kind of make this campaign successful.
Honestly, not really. We just went in there and we, jumped on a couple, like did a spaces, I think, with the trading cards guys to launch that. We, Brad came in there, helped out, and it was actually during the spaces that he bought the main pack that we were talking about, and he was like, you know what, screw it, I'm buying it now. I was like, what the fuck? So that kind of kicked off the campaign. And really, particularly with the trading cards angle, like the trading card community was fantastic. Like they're a community, they love what they're doing, they love the trading cards. There's huge support there for Aladdin and Oliver and all the team there, Brandon, etc. So I think that was a big driver initially. Sorry, I shouldn't say initially. That was a big driver throughout the whole time. So that really mattered. And then just a lot of like communication with them. So we initially like made the mistake of pricing everything in Bitcoin. And by the time we launched it, Bitcoin was around like 40, 45. And then obviously Bitcoin went on a pump and went up to 50, 60, 70. And, all the tiers ended up just being way too expensive. We're like, shit. So we kind of normalized the prices, brought it back to US dollars. And then that kind of couple people overpaid. So we went back to them and gave them a discount and all this sort of stuff. So it was like consistent communication, just doing the right thing by people. So it wasn't like tactics or strategy oriented. It was just like, look, here's this thing, here's some awesome perks. So not just like give us money just because, but like here's some awesome perks that the value is in the perks themselves. And we're not just taking the money and pocketing it. We're putting that towards, the open sourcing of the model. So like, all of that stuff, I think just made for a great story that people obviously wanted to support.
Exciting. Yeah, agree. That makes a lot of sense. Rewards really being at the center of the entire campaign makes a lot of sense. That's something we've learned a lot. Rewards are so powerful, especially limited editions, super powerful stuff where you want to get your hands on that one of one. So exciting stuff. Cool, man. Anything else here in terms of like the funding of the campaign? Obviously, kind of connecting with big Bitcoiners and the community at large that you're well networked into, Brad Mills. That also probably has a very good, very positive kind of momentum effect.
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned this both in the Kickstarter campaign and this one, but momentum really pays.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember Kickstarter when we did that. It started off kind of slowish, and then as Mark and I got on more podcasts, this and that, and as we sort of pushed it, I mean, they I think have more sophisticated algorithms and stuff like that, kind of push your campaign when it's like trending. But yeah, like momentum really changes the game because, I mean, humans are humans. Not our biology is not going to change as much as the nerds think it will. So like biology is biology. When we see something working, when there's validation from other human beings, we back when I used to do sales, this was called the Jones theory. So like when you see other people do it, there's like subconscious validation that you could do it too, and then they go with it, and that's really what drives the success, I think, of a crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, agreed. The Jones, that's a cool principle. All right, so we discussed quite a bit in terms of Satoshi. We looked at the campaign. What's next in terms of your now the big momentum, the big sort of hype has come. Now it's more about like sustaining the donations into the future. And what about the project? What are the next steps for you guys?
Yeah, for us, basically from now it's like, okay, we raised what I think is enough for us to now, we, as I said, next week we'll open source the model, we'll give it to NVK, put it on Hugging Face so anyone can download it, all of that sort of stuff. And we have a little budget now for us to keep refining the data set, making it a little bit bigger. We are going to run a couple more trainings on some bigger models. So we're gonna, like, this is a 7B, so it's a pretty babyish model. We're going to try to go to a 30B, which will be very hard for anyone to run on their own computer. But, if we at least make it available, some people might. And, maybe NVK will still be able to run it on unleashed.chat. And a 30B model will be, it's just, it's larger. It's not exponentially better, but it's like significantly better. So we're going to try and do that as well and put that out. And ideally just have like this whole set of Satoshi models, Satoshi 7B, Satoshi 30B. Maybe we can even get up to a 70B. We might have to raise more money for that. I don't know. But that's sort of the plan for that. And, ultimately, like, I don't see a huge, I think we're going to pivot away from trying to be like a commercial endeavor. I can't see us really commercializing this as a business. So I think we're just going to, as I said, open source it, support it, and I've got some other ideas from that are more commercial, that'll involve some AI stuff and Nostr stuff, etc., which I think I might have touched on with you really briefly when we were in Madeira. But that's where my interest and my effort's going to go, and we're just going to keep Satoshi there, keep refining it, and keep trying to train bigger iterations of it.
Makes a lot of sense. So what are the different ways that people can get involved in Spirit of Satoshi?
Well, there's probably two ways. One is kind of what I said earlier. It's you've either got knowledge and time on your hands, or you just got some sats, right? So if you've got knowledge and time, you can jump in and you can join the training cohort. And we call it a training cohort, but you're not really training the model directly. It's not how it works. What you're doing is you're helping us curate, collect, and clean data, right? And we call it proof of knowledge. So there's questions, there's examples, all that sort of stuff that the model gets trained on. The better that quality, the better the model will be trained, and that quality can only really come from Bitcoiners. You know what I mean? Like that's the whole point of it. If you want it to act like a Bitcoiner, you need to feed it stuff that looks, feels, and sounds like it came from a Bitcoiner.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And there's people from all over the world helping there. Like, they're earning a couple extra sats. And, most of the people actually that are active on it, they don't even need the sats. They just do it because they love it. And, it helps them. There's, one Canadian dude, Bitcoin Caribou, you might know of, but, he lives in Canada. He doesn't need the money. It's not like, the extra 50,000 sats he earned from doing this, like, going to change his life. But he's like, man, I love it. He goes, I do it as a mental exercise. And, it makes me review Bitcoin better and, reappreciate how important this thing is. So anyone can do that. And then if time is not your friend, if you're busy and you have some sats and you want to donate towards this, I mean, you can by all means just drop us some sats, no worries. Or there's those perks there. Unfortunately, all of the trading cards related ones are all gone, but the books are there. So like, buy some books, get some packs, whatever. You can throw some sats at us, donate, whatever. But they're kind of like the two big ways. And other than that, keep an eye out on what we're doing. Help us promote. Like Spirit of Satoshi has a Twitter account and an Nostr account, posting knowledge and all that sort of stuff there on a daily basis. So help, retweet that, share it around. It's really useful.
Cool. When it comes to the actual the different interfaces that Spirit of Satoshi could take, do you have plans to make it available as an interface, a bit like with OpenAI, ChatGPT?
Well, it is. So if people go to spiritsatoshi.ai, they can click chat with Satoshi, and they can log in with Lightning, log in with Nostr, log in with their email. Gotcha. And there's already one there. So at the moment, this latest model is not in there. They'll find the Satoshi version 1 in there. They'll find a ChatGPT example where we're using what's called retrieval augmentation to augment an existing one. So that's kind of like what they'll find at the moment. And next week we'll plug the latest one in so they can switch between models, play around. But it's like a ChatGPT looking interface at spiritsatoshi.ai.
Super exciting. I'd love to see how this can be integrated in different other products or interfaces into the future. I suppose it's probably not for now, but maybe into the future there's a role for this. Some sort of like Nostr, Spirit of Satoshi character on Nostr powered by your AI. I mean, that would be, I'd love to see that. Imagine people tagging Spirit of Satoshi.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of halfway there already. So the Nostr account at the moment, when like every bit of content that it drops, it's generated or part generated by the model.
Really?
But then it's not done automated. So like we just drop knowledge basically from the things the model's learned, this and that, and we structure that internally, and then we drop it, right? So definitely down the track, having it such that it does that all by itself, it generates by itself, it responds by itself, all that sort of stuff is definitely one of the little things we want to do. That's a cool little project.
Super cool. Yeah, I can't wait for that. So I think we've covered quite a lot of ground. Are there some elements from the campaigns for Satoshi launching on Geyser that you'd like to still mention because you thought it was kind of a powerful thing or something interesting from the whole experience?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think all of it. I think we covered all the bases, man. Cool. It was a great campaign. You guys have done a fantastic job with. I'd love to see how Geyser has actually grown over the last year and a half, 2 years almost that you guys have been around. So it's like you guys have done a fantastic job, man. And it's
cheers, man.
All credit to you.
Cheers, man. Means a lot. And yeah, more still building. So and likewise, super excited to see how far you guys have come with Spirit of Satoshi, and curious to find out what's the next endeavor as well. So
thank you, my friend.
Yeah, exciting. So if that's it, well, thanks so much for coming on for the call and kind of telling us a bit about your incredible project and the great success that you were able to have through the community, through the many different communities in the Bitcoin space. So really appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully we'll talk more with some of your other projects that are coming up soon.
We will, for sure, my friend. We'll do Bushido next, and then
Let's do it.
there'll be all sorts of other things to do. So thank you for having me on. Thank you for all the support you gave us, man. Honestly, it means a lot. And yeah, I look forward to really doing a whole lot of stuff with you guys, man. Thank you.
So excited. Awesome, man. Thanks so much. We'll close it here. Good weekend, everyone.